Hello everyone. Hello to everyone in the Philippines, and welcome to our special lesson this Sunday. I hope you guys are all well and are having a good day and a good weekend. And it's nice to see you again. This is my second lecture to the Philippines, so maybe you've seen the first one. And today we're also going to take a look at the same concept of how we can bring about change, some kind of positive change. So I hope you can hear me well. I hope the studio is working fine and the microphone is working well and everything is okay. And today what we're going to do is take a look at life, actually, what we need to take a look at most. And today we're going to take a look at it from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah and how Kabbalah can offer us this beautiful new perspective that we can take on life, so we can actually understand what's going on in life, what's going on with us, what's happening to us, what's happening to humanity, our country, our nations, in fact, the whole of reality itself. And to look at it from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, maybe it's the first time you've ever even heard of the wisdom of Kabbalah, but so let's just start with what the wisdom of Kabbalah is, and let's see where all this takes us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. The moderators will pass them on to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions regarding this wisdom and how we can use it in order to better our lives and the way we're living. First of all, the wisdom of Kabbalah is a very ancient science. It is actually a science. The wisdom of Kabbalah is a method where a person can actually discover his or her place in reality. We can discover the reason for creation, the purpose of creation, why we were all created, and what we actually have to achieve and do in our lives while we're living here. So it's a very profound wisdom, and like I said, it's very, very old, and we will touch on its history in a while. But for those of you who maybe looked up the wisdom of Kabbalah on the internet, you'll find a lot of strange things about it. And what I want to do is first clean up the air so we can have a correct definition, at least from the perspective that we're teaching it and the way we're learning it. Now, because this wisdom is very, very old and it's been mostly studied by a few people, there's always been this kind of blurriness around this wisdom. It's kind of misty around it, and that's why they kind of call it mystical. But the wisdom of Kabbalah isn't mystical at all. In fact, it's quite realistic, and it talks about only our existence and the reason for our existence and how we were all created, and from this level of creation, how we can achieve a higher level of consciousness. And it's this consciousness that actually all of humanity is seeking. It is actually this seeking for this high level of consciousness that allowed us to develop for thousands of years. In fact, from what the scientists call the Big Bang until now, our whole development has been a purposeful one. Because behind everything in creation there's a reason and there's a purpose. And life is actually streaming us, it's pushing us, guiding us towards the purpose of life. Just like in life, we do everything towards a purpose so that we can achieve something or achieve what we want or get what we want. Life also has a purpose. And this is why also we are purposeful beings. So the wisdom of Kabbalah only talks about how we're connected in nature and how we're connected to this creating force that created everything in reality, and how we can actually live with that force consciously, as conscious beings. So what we have to do as humanity, in short, is to give ourselves a bit of an upgrade, like they do in computers and software, because the way we're functioning right now as humanity, as you can probably see all around the world, is not very fun. It's quite dangerous, actually, and our human development over thousands of years hasn't been a very pleasant one. to say the least. And we can see from one generation to the next, although we're advancing in technology and, I don't know, science and so forth, we've come to a point where humanity really doesn't have any more options, any more places to advance or to learn new things. Mostly our science is now technological development. There hasn't been really any scientific breakthrough in a lot of things. It's just technology being developed from the science that we already know about. So, in short, the wisdom of Kabbalah is not something mystical. It is a science where we can discover the whole of reality and the reason for everything in reality and for everything that happens to us. On the internet, you might have, if you looked at it, or you might look at it in the internet after the lecture today, you might find a lot of weird things about the wisdom of Kabbalah. Some people call it black magic. Some people call it, I don't know, they even have yoga according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. I don't know how that will work. But we're going to touch its history. However, although there are many things around this wisdom, there is only one thing that is really profound about it. And that profoundness comes due to the fact that it is a science to discover everything in creation and that creating force. Now, that creating force sometimes is known as God or Allah or Elohim. I don't know, call it whatever you like. In religions, they have names. But there's actually one force that created everything. And it included everything inside itself so that we may develop from this and to become like it. So the wisdom of Kabbalah and its origin goes all the way back to a guy which I'm sure all of you know about, was called Adam. Okay, so if you ever heard about a person called Adam, he goes around in a lot of books. This wisdom actually comes from Adam. And Adam was around nearly 6,000 years ago, and he was actually the first person to ask this question. What is the meaning of my life? Why am I living? Now, although in books they say Adam was the first man created, there is some truth to it, but we have to define it correctly. Adam was actually the first person to discover this higher level of consciousness. That's why he's called the first man. Because before Adam, for thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands of years, there were people in this bodily form. But in the wisdom of Kabbalah, human, the word Adam, man, actually means that you can perceive this upper force. You can live together in this high level of consciousness with this upper force, in this upper realm. So this is very, very important to understand that in the wisdom of Kabbalah and how a human, a man or a woman, when I say a man, don't consider it like a sexual thing, man or a woman. Man is the general human. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. As a human being, the definition of a human, this level that is the highest in creation, is actually to exist and coexist with this upper force, with the Creator, call it God, call it whatever. So it's very, very important for us to understand initially when we start studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, that although some of the concepts may be familiar to some of the religions, we must understand that the definitions are very, very much different. So Adam was the first person to discover that there was this upper force and that he could actually be in touch with this upper force and live in its realm. And that's actually called the level of human. And he started this, like I said, nearly 6,000 years ago. You know what? In fact, let's do a timeline. All right, so let's do a timeline and let's draw something. Let's discover that timeline. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so if we draw a timeline, a historical timeline, we can say that Adam was the first man who in fact was the first person to discover godliness, or the Creator, or this upper force. It doesn't really matter what definition we give, because the important thing here is the concept that there is a force that created everything. And it's actually logical from the perspective of our existence to kind of assume that there is a creating force, simply because we can pretty much see that we didn't create this reality. So I didn't create myself, I didn't create the world, I didn't create the trees, the animals, and the sun and the moon. So there must be a force that is creating. So we don't know what it is at the moment, and Adam didn't know either. So his question was, well, he looked at life nearly 6,000 years ago, and he said to himself, well, you know, why are we living? I'm living here, stuck in this body. I'm born, and I'm looking at my parents and my grandparents. They're living as well, and they're dying off, just like everybody. And I'm gonna start dying off soon too. And I'm looking at life, and I just don't see any meaning behind it. So he was the first person to actually investigate the purpose of life. Why am I living? Who created me? And what does he want from me? Because I'm looking at life and I'm not getting much pleasure from it. The whole world is in chaos. According to Adam, that's how it was as well, because he was going through a personal crisis. So if he wasn't going through that personal crisis, he wouldn't be asking the question, why am I living? What's the meaning of life? And if a person isn't really asking these questions about life, there's really nothing to discover, because all our discovery is actually from questioning life. We question, and we then want to discover why things happen. This is how we actually got into science. Humanity's scientific development is sheerly because we want to discover the meaning of life. That's why we developed science, because we wanted to know why. And so Adam was the first person to ask, why am I living? What's the meaning of my life? And so he discovered the Creator. Now, discovering the Creator means that I'm actually beginning to perceive this force that's acting on all of us, all of reality, simply because I'm beginning to attain his attributes. I'm beginning to behave like him. I'm beginning to look at life like him. And this attainment that Adam got immediately began actually the development of humanity. This is why Adam is known as the first man, because human is a spiritual degree. It's not this meat and flesh that we live in, because this is going to die. This is an animal. Just like a monkey dies, a cat, dog, or any animal dies, our body dies as well, because this is not the man that they're talking about in the books. The man they're talking about is existing at a higher level of consciousness, which is beyond this body. So immediately from Adam onwards, humanity began to develop, meaning that a series of people started to discover this Creator. And those people are known as Kabbalists. And this is how the wisdom of Kabbalah first developed. Throughout generations, there were many Kabbalists. After Adam, many of them were, through every generation. Specific, important one was given to a man called Abraham. Now, Abraham is also a special guy, because up to Abraham, the Kabbalists, such as Noah, he also asked about the meaning of life. All the Kabbalists in between studied and taught the wisdom in a closed environment. It was like to their family, because there wasn't really anybody else around that was asking the meaning of life. People were just wanting to stay alive, remain alive, and to keep living. Just like in the animate degree. A lot of people in humanity are still living at that degree. They just want to carry on with life, live it out as best they can. And thousands of years ago, things weren't much different. But Abraham, during the time of Babylon, was a special character in the sense that he also asked about the meaning of life. And when he discovered the Creator, he immediately realized that they were in a special state in Babylon. And this special state in Babylon was the first civilization. It was the first time that a lot of people from different backgrounds came together in order to make a civilization. So this civilization was a new breaking point. It was a new breakthrough, let's say, in human society, simply because it allowed us to create a society, and it allowed us to be a social network. And this is why Babylon was very special. It was the first time humanity actually connected with each other. They made a country, they made an environment where they could trade together, they could work together, they could live together. And the beauty about this point was Abraham discovered that, well, wait a minute, the more we grow as a society, he discovered that there was more egoism growing in us as well. So Abraham was a critical point in evaluating to us that humanity was now at a new phase of development. And this new phase of development, Abraham actually started the first group of Kabbalists in history. He collected a bunch of people from Babylon, and they were the first Kabbalistic group. And in fact, after them, you'll note that religions came, all kinds of other methods came, but none of them really maintained the Kabbalistic approach. So our story starts with Adam. It's later developed by Abraham, and it has been passed on through generations and generations until our time, when we're here after many Kabbalists, after many generations. Here we are in the 21st century, and our situation isn't much different than Babylon. If you think about it, Babylon was a huge civilization, and now in the 21st century, our whole world is one global mixture of humanity. And it is actually a new Babylon. A new Babylon. We're all connected through our mobiles, even today. If you think about it, there are many of our friends around Philippines watching us through this mobile. We have become like a little Babylon. We're all connected with each other, despite all our differences, despite where we're living geographically, despite our religion, our culture, our language. The whole world is now one big Babylon. Everybody's trading with each other. There is no one person that can really be disconnected from this environment that we're all in and we're living in. So the Western world, the Western society, and even remote parts of the world are all developing according to the generality of humanity. And as we can see also, as we develop, we are going through more and more problems globally. We're going through economic problems. We're going through social turmoil. We're having a lot of natural disasters. Also in the Philippines, I'm sure you're also aware, you're also going through some natural disasters as well, time to time, with floods and hurricanes and so forth, because the whole world is integrated in this new era in the 21st century. And this is something that we now as humanity have to start studying and start learning about what's going on, what's bringing about this new turmoil that the whole of humanity is going through. So the wisdom of Kabbalah opens up the gates for us, opens up our vision, and it describes to us why all of these things are happening. So from Adam, people started wondering about the meaning of life, and in the 21st century, a lot of people are asking the meaning of life. A lot of people are asking why we have problems, and we simply cannot solve those problems. And what we can do about it, because our nature instinctively wants to be happy and fulfilled, wants to have a good life, a peaceful life, and we want a peaceful future as well. But we're looking at life and we understand that things are not going in that direction. And we don't understand why, despite the fact that we began to make all kinds of changes in society. We made all kinds of revolutions throughout the 6,000 years. Imagine all the things we went through. We went through kingdoms, the Middle Ages, we went through, I don't know, democracy, fascism, communism, all kinds of things. We developed for ourselves culture, science, religions, education, everything. But we began to understand, and we see right now, that we don't have a solution for anything. Every country in the world is going through its personal crisis, just like an individual is going through a personal crisis. And the whole world, just like a society, is going through its societal problems. So the world is showing us that on the one hand, we're all connected, despite the fact that we're all over the place on the planet. On the other hand, it's also showing us that the way that the world is influencing everyone is interconnected and it's problematic. And here exactly the wisdom of Kabbalah comes to explain to us why we have such problems and what we can do about it. So today we're going to touch on that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll be more than happy to answer them as we go along. So let's take a look at our essence. Now, the most important thing Kabbalists say to us is, well, first, if you want to discover reality, you've got to discover yourself. Okay? Who are you? What are you? And what is your essence? What are you made from? And this is very important because our biggest problem is we don't understand ourselves. And this is why we have depression, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, psychological problems, all kinds of social problems occur because we don't know what our essence is. We don't know what we are. And if we don't know what we are, we can't really, diagnose the sickness. And we can't really give ourselves the medicine. So Kabbalists explain to us who and what we are in our essence. So let's take a look at that shortly. Now, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, they say this creator, this creating force, is a very good force. Okay, you might find it hard to believe, but he's a very good force. And what he wanted to do was actually he wanted to create a partner in reality. And that was called human. Right? That's what he wanted. He wanted to share the whole of reality, everything, with this special created being, which happens to be all of us. Okay? And that was the plan, and that still is the plan, and that is the goal we are going to get to. So in order for us to get to that special, wonderful goal, he had to create a created being who wanted to get there. Because if you want something in life, that's when you get pleasure and you attain it, right? So the Creator created a desire to receive pleasure. And this is why every day we want something in life. You wake up, from the moment you wake up, you want something in life. You want to, I don't know, you want to get rich, you want to be famous, you want to know something, you want to have a good meal. Our life is constantly going after desires that are just popping up inside of us. And that's natural, and that's how it should be, because initially when we were first created by this Creator, the whole idea was to create a created being like a vessel to receive everything. In fact, let me draw this a little better. Okay, let's do this. To receive everything that the Creator wanted to give. So our essence, which we should be aware of and we should really know, is that we are all a desire to receive pleasure. This is what we are. A desire to receive pleasure. And you can look at your life and you can see that you've been running after getting pleasures all your life. And this is how it's been since the inception of creation. We are a desire to receive pleasure, and we run after things all the time, constantly wanting to get fulfillment. This has been humanity's drive. If we didn't have a desire, we would never get anywhere in life. If we didn't have a desire, we wouldn't have anything in life. So our essence is a desire to receive pleasure. And the Kabbalists say, well, the sooner you understand this, the better it is, because there's a problem with this. And that problem is very simple. If you have a desire and you get what you want, okay? So this is your desire. And let's say you got what you want. You got the fulfillment. Kabbalists say, well, this is crazy, because the minute you get what you want, the desire and the fulfillment, they cancel each other out. You see, the moment you're hungry and you begin to eat your food, after the fifth, the sixth mouthful, the taste is gone and you're left with the food. You just finish it off, but you get no pleasure from it, because the pleasure just disappeared the moment you got what you wanted. See, that's a really default situation, and there's nothing we can do about it unless we know how to work with it. This is why in humanity nobody can ever be happy, and it's our biggest problem, because we don't understand this formula. Everybody wants to be happy, great, because that's how we were created, to be happy. But our little problem is we don't know where to get happiness from. You see, no matter what you want in life, if you get it, the pleasure and the desire, they cancel each other out. There is no happiness in this game. No happiness. You are left feeling empty once again. Now you have to run after a new thing, thinking you can be happy. If you get it, you won't be. You'll just end up with a big, fat minus. There we go. I'll tell you why you end up with a big, fat minus. Because you wasted your life chasing something, investing money in it, and you got zero pleasure once you got it. This is how it is with every desire you have. The minute you get what you want, the desire and the pleasure cancel each other out, and you're left with nothing. So humanity is in this dilemma, always wanting to be happy because that's our nature. There's nothing we can do about it. And the problem is we're going around it the wrong way. And because we don't understand this law in nature, we're constantly eating up the planet, eating up each other, and thinking we can get more happiness from things that are in this world, when we can't. Even if you were the richest man in the world, you cannot be happy because you have everything you want. Why is it that rich people, famous people, people who have a lot of money, end up more in drug abuse, alcohol abuse, bad marriages, psychological problems, depression? Why? Because if you have the power to have everything you want, you get pleasure from nothing. You understand? You see, we've been educated in life to get the things we want so that we can be happy. Well, that's a bit of a silly education, because according to the laws of nature, the minute I get what I want, I'm just going to feel empty again. So no matter what I get, it doesn't matter what I get. The rule is that if you get what you want, you're left with emptiness again, because you're in the middle of your favorite dinner. When you're in the middle of it, the taste of that perfect meal has already disappeared, because the best taste you got in that meal was your first bite. And after the first bite, the taste and the pleasure started going less and less. It started to diminish. And you're there in the middle of your meal. What do? You're just eating it to finish your meal. And at the middle of your meal, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about dessert. Because the pleasure from the meal is already gone. That's all. So what we have to understand is there's a rule here in nature. On the one hand, is pushing us to be happy, to find happiness, which is our nature. And on the other hand, we're looking at the life that we're in, and we can't get happiness. It just doesn't work out, and it won't work out unless we understand how to short circuit this thing that we've been evaluating. Evaluating here. So this setup that we're in is a lost cause. And humanity's biggest problem is the lack of understanding of this formula. So let's take a look at how we developed throughout history. Okay. Let's take a look at our historical development. Now, from the beginning of humanity, there we go, let's just draw another timeline. From the beginning of humanity, our driving force was this force to get what we want. We have desires and we want to fulfill them. Right? We want pleasure because that's our program. It's our software. Today you leave this lecture. After this lecture, you want to do something to get some satisfaction. I don't know, have a cup of coffee, go to visit a friend, anything. You will do something to fulfill yourself. Everything we do is for that fulfillment. So humanity's development through thousands of years has been through this force of development called the desire to receive for myself. Force of development, which is our inner program, just like a software. You can see all that, right? Inner program. And it's called desire to receive pleasure for myself. This desire to receive pleasure is okay. Desire to receive pleasure for myself is also okay, simply because it's our software and program. But how to go about using this so that we can develop properly. Now, humanity has been using this nature of ours in the form that we can see in the world so openly right now, in egoistic way. And this egoism has been actually this force that's been developing us. So from the development of humanity, for thousands, in fact hundreds of thousands of years, we've been going through, developing through phases and achieving what we wanted in life, such as food, family, the things that we needed to exist. Food, family, and sex. That was humanity's first development phase. They needed a way to sustain themselves so that the generations could continue. So our first development in society was to make sure we got these right. And that's how we developed. That's how agriculture developed. That's how the whole industrial revolution in Babylon occurred. They needed to develop a way that they can sustain themselves. And this growing desire to move forward, this egoism, was the pushing force so that we could move forward in life. So we developed food, family, sex. Then we wanted to get rich. This is how kingdoms started, because some people in society wanted more than others. Before, we were all sharing. We shared everything because coexistence meant we had a future. But now, when society developed into a civilization, what happened was people wanted to get rich. So we had a desire for money. We developed a desire for money. I saw that my neighbor has 2 sheep and I have only 1. So I decided I need 3. And this is how becoming rich developed. Everybody started to trade with each other. Instead of the old communal way, we decided to do different things, and different people traded with different people. So we developed money. We had a desire for richness, desire to be rich. And with Babylon also, We developed a desire to rule, honor, to rule. These are desires that developed humanity. We began to, actually, on the one hand, we began to develop as society. On the other hand, we began to drift apart. Because all these things now divided society. Now in society we had richer people, poorer people. We had in society those who ruled the people and those who were ruled. So humanity, with this growing desire to constantly want and get and get and get, began to develop desire to govern. And then in humanity, after the turning point for humanity's scientific development was in the Middle Ages, well, after the Middle Ages, during the Renaissance period. So then we had science. Science began to develop because we had a desire to know, desire for knowledge. And this desire for knowledge was actually the beginning for humanity's development towards where we are now in the 21st century. Because with science, we thought we could discover everything. We could discover the secret behind everything. We could know everything. One little problem was, though, we got to know a lot of things in nature. There's still a lot of things we don't know. But what happened is we came to a point where we now have a desire to know, why? Why? Let's do that. Why am I living? Okay, so what is the meaning of life? Because where we are at the moment, we don't have much meaning. We live like animals do. We're born, we live, and we die. We like to think we're better than animals, but think about it. Who's more happy in life? An animal that's living in nature, or us? Imagine a monkey living in a forest. Peaceful, everything is balanced in nature. And imagine us living in a concrete forest. Which one of us is more happy? I'd go with the monkey. Okay, judging from human society, I'd go with the monkey. It's a lot more happier than we are. So in the 21st century, as humanity's entered this new phase of development, we need to recognize that we're having a lot of social problems because we need to recognize what the problem is. And that problem is our human nature. That our nature wants to constantly get fulfilled, and it does so on the expense of others in an egoistic way. So people who have a greater ego, like politicians or the rich people, they use and abuse the poorer ones, and they have to. This is not their fault. This is not their fault. They're not doing this purposefully. It's that way because this is our nature. And if we were in their situation, we would have done the same thing. Our human nature is egoistic. So it's only logical that we see that the way they're behaving is normal. If they have a desire to rule, if they have a desire for money, this is what they do. And it's natural. There's nobody to blame here because we don't understand our nature. And the wisdom of Kabbalah says, listen, if we don't understand our nature, we'll just keep blaming each other. We'll just keep throwing faults at each other, and we'll just fight each other all the time. And this is what humanity has been doing for thousands and thousands of years. All the things that we've done is just kill each other. Why? Because we think somebody else is at fault. And we don't understand what our essence is. and we don't know what to do with it. So everybody thinks, in their desire to receive, that I am right. And the others are not. And this is our human nature. And due to this fact that we disregard the other simply because we're living in our own little box, this is our own little box, and it's a limited perception of life because I just see myself and I think there are other people doing a lot of things in the world, and I want to correct what others are doing, and I want to make myself look right because I think I'm right. Well, Kabbalists say, well, there's nobody who's right. Nobody can be right, simply because we're living in a nature that's given to us by creation, and it's egoistic. And there's nobody to really blame because that's how we're born. And just like a child, a baby grows up, and as the baby grows up, he or she begins to want more things, don't they? Children grow up, and as they grow up, they want more things. Why? Because their ego is growing. So humanity's egoism is the same thing for thousands of years. Our egoism has been growing. It's been wanting more and more and more. And now we've come to the 21st century where we have, what do we have? We have social disasters. Social disasters. Imagine the number of problems there are in human society. So our social disasters are ecological chaos, our personal chaos, personal life crises. It's all simply because we don't know how to deal with our own nature. And that's our biggest problem. So Kabbalists say, listen, unless you change the way you use your nature, you're never going to stop these problems. And what will happen is we will get to a third world war. Third world war. If we carry on this way. Why? Well, the First World War was about what? It was about money and control. The Second World War was also about money and control. And the Third World War is also going to be about control as well. What changed? Well, the only thing changed is because our egoism is growing, the weapons we developed are much greater and much more destructive. See, that's the only thing that changed. In fact, if you ask the question, what changed in humanity from the Middle Ages up till now, I can honestly say to you, it's the same barbaric, dark-aged humanity that's still living in the 21st century. And that's just how it is. Because as long as we're in this egoistic nature, we're just going to remain like a bunch of wild savages. So Kabbalists for thousands of years are explaining that this development needs to come to a point where humanity must make a switch. Because if we don't, the whole world will begin to squeeze us. And that's what exactly we're feeling right now. Even nature is showing us with all the ecological disasters. Imagine if you go on the news today, look up ecological disasters 2019. You will see hundreds of them. Earthquakes, floods, volcanoes, landslides all around the world. If you look at social unrest on the news, you will find social unrest all around the world. If you look at personal problems, depression, drug abuse, you will find it skyrocketing. Why? Because in our current nature, we want to be happy and we cannot be. And we don't understand why. So the wisdom of Kabbalah has come to this is why it's revealed, because there's a need to understand why we cannot be happy in life. So if we're a desire to receive pleasure, and we're constantly seeking fulfillment, and if they cancel each other out, we have to ask ourselves a question. Well, I can't change this because this is our nature. What do I have to do? How can it be that I want to be happy? I should be happy. That's the purpose of life, is to be happy, guys. Okay? This is why we want to be happy, because that is the purpose of life. So I have to start looking at it in a critical way. I have to ask myself, well, how can I be happy if I can't be happy living in this way? And that is the question that the wisdom of Kabbalah answers. All right? Because the purpose of life is for all of us to be fulfilled with amazing happiness, to exist in that higher level of consciousness, and to realize and recognize that our biggest problem in life is that we're using egoism to try to be happy. And that's not working out. All right, so that's the critical point we need to understand here. We're using our egoistic nature in order to be happy, and that's not going to work out. What we have to do is to see how we can use our nature to be happy in a non-egoistic way, but in a natural way, according to the laws of nature. Now, for example, you might say, well, what is according to the laws of nature? Right? How can a person be happy according to the laws of nature? Right? There's a fruit tree, okay? A fruit tree never eats its own fruit, right? You guys pick from the fruit, or animals pick from the tree. You guys pick the fruit and you eat it, right? But the tree doesn't eat its own fruit, right? Okay? It doesn't. Why? Because its fulfillment is not for itself. Its fulfillment is from sharing what it can produce with somebody else, which is like humanity as well. Imagine a mother or a father, right? So I'm sure you guys, some of you have kids. When is the time when you're most happy with them? Is when you make them happy. When you make them happy, you get a special fulfillment. Okay? You get a special happiness because you made them happy. Now, this is how the laws of nature work. You see, the water, it feeds all the plants, all the animals, all of humanity, but the water doesn't drink itself. It's just there running. The soil gives all its minerals to a seed, makes it grow, makes it into a tree that gives fruit. But the soil, it doesn't eat itself up. It uses itself to actually advance the next situation, the next state. So from the soil, from the water, we get the plants, the trees, and they feed the animals, they feed us. So this balance, this ecosystem in nature, this law in nature, is a cycle that's providing for everybody else. And that's humanity's problem, you see. And this is why we can't be happy. Because as long as I'm all about me, if I'm always thinking about me, I can never, ever be fulfilled as me. But in nature, everything turns around, comes around. Okay? So we have the still level, which is the soil, the water, the sun, the moon. Okay? Then we have the vegetative level, all the plants. Then we have the animate level. And this is our life. And this is a cycle. Now, all of these are in balance. They're all balanced out. But humanity is out here somewhere. And it's completely disconnected from this balanced state. We just think we're extraordinarily great for some reason. And we're a dysfunctional, defective part in the whole of creation. So humanity is now discovering that we're defective. How are we discovering that? Well, look at planets. Look at our planet. The ocean is a trash of plastic. All our water is polluted. The air is polluted. We have managed to destroy, nearly destroy because we're still alive, nearly destroy the planet in order to suck everything for our benefit. And we haven't learned from the laws of nature. And because we haven't learned from the laws of nature, we're going towards self-destruction. It's like we're, as humanity, it's like we're cancer. We have cancer. We're eating each other up. We're eating ourselves up. We're eating the whole of creation up. So the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, look, if you carry on living this way, there's not going to be much to live for. So Kabbalists explain to us that humanity as the pinnacle, it really is the pinnacle of creation, has to integrate itself in a balanced way to the animate, vegetative, and still level, and really create this harmony and balance existence. Okay? So in order for us to get to that balanced existence, we have to first understand that our egoistic nature cannot help us here. We have to educate ourselves. We have to study the laws of nature, which is what Kabbalah is actually. Kabbalah is for us the laws of nature. And we have to understand what these laws are so we can balance ourselves. Otherwise, we will not have social unrest. We will not stop having social unrest. I'm sure in the Philippines you're also going through social waves, social unrests, ecological unrests, and so is everybody else in the world, from the US to China, from the Middle East to South America. You can see all these countries are going through turmoil all the time. Ecologically, politically, socially, economically, we are completely surrounded by problems, forcing and pushing us to ask this question: why are we living, and what's the meaning of life, and how we can get to that? And the way to get to that is to understand the laws of nature. And Kabbalah is the study of the laws of nature, so we can integrate ourselves to the laws of nature in order to become a higher being, which the Kabbalists say are similar to the Creator, which is actually equal to nature, by the way. This is why the laws of nature are known as the Creator's laws. So all of this needs to be integrated. We need to learn about it. We need to find out. We need to discover our own nature. We need to discover how incompatible it is to the laws of general nature. And from there, we need to educate ourselves to balance ourselves out. What humanity is seeking right now is actually a spiritual elevation. And that spiritual elevation can only come if we begin to now rise consciously from this animate level of existence into a higher level of understanding, perception, and existing together in a unison way, in unity with the whole of reality. So, This brings us to our famous question. A lot of people ask in life, do we have free choice? What do you guys think? Anybody has an idea on free choice? By the way, if you have any questions, let me know. I think you guys can also communicate with me here on Zoom. So if you have any questions, if you got your camera on, I can see you anyway. I can see there are a few people there sitting in the Philippines. Hi to everyone. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because this development in humanity is very important. We're at a turning point in human development, in human history. And if humanity doesn't make a conscious change, nature will force us to make a change. And the way nature forces us to change is not very nice. It will be through a lot of ecological problems, through natural disasters, where we will begin to reevaluate our existence from suffering. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is against us suffering. We don't want to suffer. We want to understand, we want to educate ourselves, and we want to grow consciously so that we can, bypass this suffering. So this is very important for us to all understand, that the wisdom of Kabbalah has to take us, the wisdom of Kabbalah or suffering will take us to a new level of existence, whether we like it or not. Humanity is like a fruit on a tree. It has no choice but to grow and become this beautiful, juicy fruit on the tree. However, if we miss the opportunity to pick that fruit is going to mutate and it's going to turn rotten. And we're at that critical turning point where, as humanity, we have to really take this upon ourselves to start consciously developing and really eat the fruit of this development, which is actually to attain a higher level of consciousness where we can really be free from the reins of this desire to receive that's controlling us all the time. Because if you think about it, if our nature is a desire to receive pleasure, and this is how we're working inside, it's a software, it means that we don't really have any free choice. How can I have any freedom of choice if my nature is constantly demanding from me to get pleasure? I have no choice but to run around and fulfill myself, like a dog chasing its tail. This is how the state of humanity is. We're constantly running around like a dog chasing its tail, wanting to get more and more and more, and we won't get nowhere. And this brings us to the question, well, if this is our inner software, and we're doing everything according to this inner software of wanting to get more and more pleasure, then how can we be free? How can we even have a free choice? It's just running us. It's ruling us. It's like a program with a software. It has no other option. It's just running that software. That's it. So there comes a question. Are we free at all? Or are we just like animals living instinctively? Because if you look at animals, they're living instinctively as well. So are we. The difference is that we have much more egoism. We want more and more and more. So where is our freedom of choice? And by the way, I think we've got a question here from, and this question is, what's the difference between Kabbalah and religion? They speak about the argument between God and man. How is Kabbalah different? Well, that's a really good question. Why is Kabbalah different? Well, for one thing, in Kabbalah we don't believe, we discover. And that's a critical importance. In religions, you're taught something and they tell you, listen, this is how it is, and you have to believe it. Well, the Kabbalists say, well, listen, if you haven't attained it, you telling yourself you believe it is just nonsense. So in the wisdom of Kabbalah, there is no God until you attain God. And that's one hell of a difference. You see, religion is therefore telling you should believe things which you haven't discovered, which you don't know about. And does the person who taught you know? He doesn't know either. So how is he teaching you? Well, somebody told him. So religion is this thing for thousands of years people have been telling each other to believe, when in fact there's nothing really to believe. This is why religion is at its ending phase. We've now come to a level in human development that religion is completely dysfunctional. And the more religious people get in life, you can see that it's turning more into a more chaotic life. The more religious humanity becomes, the more radical they get, and the more savage they get. They have forgotten everything that the essence of their religion has taught them. You look at every religion teaches you to love thy neighbor as thyself. There's not one religion who practices that. Everybody's against everybody. But every religion teaches you to be good. But who is good? Everybody is bad against each other. So religion is dysfunctional because it doesn't give humanity any attainment. And what humanity needs to have, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, is a full conscious feeling, sensation, and understanding of this Creator. And that's why it's critically different. There is no blind belief or faith because somebody told me so. The wisdom of Kabbalah wants you to discover the Creator, to discover the whole of nature, and to actually integrate yourself inside it as a conscious being, to actually discover this relationship with the Creator consciously, and to be in that conscious existence, rather than simply believing what somebody told you and taking that as blind truth. So that is very different. In religions, there is no such thing as attaining God in this life. You see, religions want you to, or are teaching us to believe that something will happen after you die. Well, Kabbalah says, listen, after you die, nothing happens. Because at the end of the day, who is you that is dying? If you're not living at a higher level of consciousness, you're just a piece of meat and bones. So is a cat and a dog. They're just a little bit furrier than you are, other than the fact that this is just an animal. So the animal is dying. We're not reaching that human level of perception, of consciousness, so that we can actually live in that higher level of consciousness forever. As long as we are living in this bodily sensation, religion can only promise you something good after death. And do you know something, whether something will happen or not? You don't know. Do the people who teach you that know? They don't know either. Nobody knows because nobody's been there and back. So Kabbalists say, listen, that kind of life is not going to take us anywhere. And that can't be a purpose of humanity or creation, because otherwise, if something was supposed to happen after we die, it's like deleting the existence of this life here. So what am I supposed to attain here? Just blindly believe something will happen after I'm dead? It's just not comprehensible. So humanity's development needs to start. Consciousness needs to start. Consciousness means to feel the Creator. It needs to start while I'm living in this world. And it needs to be realized completely, 100%, to its utmost level while I'm living in this world. That is the purpose of existing on this planet, in this world. And this is something we must all understand critically. So This is the difference. Does everybody need to study Kabbalah to reach the change of program? Well, I'll tell you something. I don't know if we'll call it Kabbalah in the future, but humanity has to change. That's one thing. And I think from life, we understand that from life. The wisdom of Kabbalah, to study it seriously, people come and study it seriously. But the purpose of life is for everyone in humanity. Everybody. There are 8 billion people in the world, and 8 billion people need to come to this consciousness. And people who study Kabbalah actually help people and themselves to reach that level. The thing is, that's a really good question. It's also a very deep question, and maybe we need to answer it with a drawing. You see, what we have to understand is that all of humanity, 8 billion people, in reality, including everything in creation, the plants, animals, the planets and everything, is one creature, one man, or one human. One human. So, if in the whole of humanity we have a group of people studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, and by the way, there are quite a lot of people studying the wisdom of Kabbalah with us around the world. All around the world we have friends. What happens is, it gives a ripple effect. It's like in the body, right? All of a sudden, let's say I'm sick, I take a pill and it hits my stomach, and from my stomach it begins to, affect the whole body, right? Until I heal. So same here. In humanity, if a group of Kabbalists, let's call this a group of Kabbalists, which can be anyone, right? So hopefully we'll have some friends in the Philippines who want to become Kabbalists as well. What happens is they have a ripple effect, like maybe you heard about the butterfly effect, right? So one butterfly flutters its wings in Africa, causes earthquakes in Japan, let's say, So what happens is we have a ripple effect. Just like now, for example, you guys are now in the Philippines watching this lecture, right? All of a sudden, you had maybe this question about the meaning of life, so you wanted to come and listen, right? Or you asked about, well, why are we having, ecological problems? Why is our country going through turmoil? Or why am I going through my personal life as a turmoil? Why am I having problems? Why is my country having problems? Why is the world having problems? Why is this life a mess? So what happens is, when a group of Kabbalists start to study, because they're integrated inside humanity, and all of humanity is in one creation, just like how we're connected, right? From one mobile phone, you can listen to me somewhere in the Philippines, and I'm here somewhere else. So this whole concept of being connected is actually because all of humanity is like one body. So what happens is, when a group of Kabbalists start to study, they begin to influence and change the opinions and the outlook of others. Now, this is really important to understand, because we're all connected. Just like all the organs in a body are connected, just like all the cells do their role in order to maintain the body, just like all the cells come together to make the organs, all the organs come together to make the body, and they're all connected and interconnected, and they work in harmony when they're a healthy body. Well, the same with humanity. You see, when a group of Kabbalists start to study, they immediately begin to influence those that are close by to them. And this is critical because also very logical, because this is how humanity develops. All of a sudden in the Philippines, you guys are asking about the meaning of life. All of a sudden we've got friends in Japan. We've got friends in the US. We've got friends in China, Russia, Europe, Middle East, Africa, all around the world, South America, North America, everywhere. Everywhere, people are beginning to wake up. Why? Because from the one hand, life is pressuring us. And from the other, a Kabbalistic group wants to give humanity the solution to this pressure. Because life always works between plus and minus. We can't have one without the other. No day without the night. No sweet without the bitter. No good without the bad. Everything in life must be from two opposite angles. So what happens in that way is, on the one hand, we have life pressuring us. Life is pressuring humanity from all over with all kinds of problems. Economy, social unrest, depression, wars, conflicts, you name it, epidemics, everything. Life is just pressuring humanity from all over. So Kabbalists, a group of Kabbalists, what they do is they want to correct this situation. They want to bring this outer pressure into a balance from an inner pressure, so that we can balance things out. Okay? So a group of Kabbalists want to counter that force, counter all the negative force with a good force. And what happens is, oops, sorry about that. I think there's something ringing here. Just bear with me. Okay. Okay. I've got a few things open on the computer because what I have to do is, okay, there we go. Because I've got a few things open on the computer to get the questions in, so they're all ringing. Okay, so what we have to do is balance this negative force, okay, with a conscious development. Okay, and that's very critical. So a group of Kabbalists, when they study, when all of us are studying to advance consciously, what happens is it influences other people in the world. Let's actually do that with a different color. And this influence brings people to an understanding, and also to the study, to learn, to want to know. So we should all come to the study of Kabbalah. Might not be named Kabbalah in the future. I don't know what form it will take in the future. But all of us as humanity must surely come to learn the laws of nature and how to integrate ourselves into these laws of nature. This is very, very important. There's another question here. Can I reach a higher consciousness while I live like I do now? Absolutely. All of us are carrying on with our lives as they are. Nothing is really changing. What we do is add to our lives, just like we add, I don't know, some people like to go to the gym, some people like to go to a club to you know, have a hobby. Some people like to go fishing. We have hobbies, right? So the Kabbalists say, well, listen, our life is going to carry on as usual. We still have family, work, and responsibilities that we need to take care of. But what we need to do also is add to that this learning, to learn about our lives, so we can discover why we're living and what we need to do and how we can balance ourselves out so we can have a higher level of consciousness. So you don't have to change anything in your life. All we have to do is add to our life some knowledge, some conscious development about what our essence is, about the laws of nature, about how our nature works and how we need to balance it with the general laws of nature, so that we can bring this positive and the negative to a reconciliation, because our nature is against the laws of nature, and this is why we have all these problems in life. So what we have to do is reconcile them by attaining, by clothing ourselves with a new attribute inside the laws of nature, which is actually being good people, believe it or not. We don't understand how to be good, so we have to learn what good is. Good is not defined according to what people think in the world, because a lot of people think they do good and they bring a lot of bad things to the world. In fact, all the bad things in life is mostly because good people are trying to do good things and they're completely destroying our world. We have to understand what good is. We have to understand what bad is before we even, talk about doing these good things. So the wisdom of Kabbalah first wants to tell us that, listen, just like kids go to school, we have to go to learn our nature and human nature and the laws of nature. So first we must get conscious, and then we start integrating ourselves correctly into life. But you don't have to change anything. You can reach a higher level of consciousness while you live right now the way you're living. All you have to do is add the study so you can grow consciously. That's a really nice question. So we don't have to close ourselves into a monastery or go up to a mountain or whatever. We live like normal people in society. I also have a job, family, go to work, do all these things. And also on top of that, I study the wisdom of Kabbalah, and I also teach it to people who want to learn so they can also advance. So you don't have to change anything in life. We just add this new teaching, just like you'd want to learn something new in life, just like you want to maybe learn how to play the piano or learn how to paint. Just like you want to learn something, you can add this to your life very easily. And because you're in the Philippines, we have a nice group of people there who can really help you out. You can join us virtually, work with us, study with us. It's not a problem at all. There's another question here. Can I reach a high... as a Filipino, how does Kabbalah offer me a better life? Well, that's a good question. Well, let's look at it from a personal perspective, right? Whether you're a Filipino or anyone actually, because we're like Babylon now. Everybody's all over the world. But just think about it right now. Okay, this is you, right? And you are living in the Philippines. Okay, so you're living in the Philippines, and this is the greater world, right? This is the world, and you're in the Philippines. Now, in the Philippines, just like everybody else around the world, what do you have? You have family, work, friends, okay, health, I don't know. What else do you guys have? Family, work, friends, health, whatever else you have in life, government, ecology, everything. Ecology, society, all kinds of things, media, everything that's influencing you in life. Okay? So you have all these things. And you know what? Everybody around the world has the same things. And sometimes we find all these things that are pressuring us very overwhelming. Okay? So we don't know what to do with ourselves. With family, life, work, we don't know. We're in a dilemma. Okay? So you're in the Philippines in a dilemma. But you know what? I've got friends in Australia, in the US, in Europe, in Russia, in the Middle East, in China, South America, that are going through exactly the same thing as you are. And this is why the whole world is now like a Babylon. It's all mixed up. It's like all of us are living the same things, just in different countries. But we're going through the same things. We're going through life. Life is really chewing us up. And it's chewing us up with all these things around us, with work, friends, society, health, government, ecology, family, media, everything. It's just a one big mess. We're in this big mess. So as a Filipino in the Philippines, what you'd be doing is thinking to yourself, well, what do I want from my life? Okay, so what do I want? This is a critical question you need to ask yourself. What do I want? What do I want to be in life? I'm looking at life, I'm looking at society, and do I want to carry on living like this? Or do I want to, do I want to attain a higher level of consciousness? Do I want to attain the meaning of life? Do I want a better life? All of us want a better life. And the only way to get to a better life is if I can balance myself against all these forces from the outside. And that's what the wisdom of Kabbalah really gives a person. You begin to counter and you begin to balance yourself out. You begin to be a bit more selective. Even today, if you never studied the wisdom of Kabbalah, you learned one thing today. And that thing is that the desire and the pleasure cancel each other out. So if there's one thing you can take from today's lesson, and you can see it upon yourselves with experience, it's really tangible. No matter what you get in life, the minute you get it, the pleasure disappears. Even if you take this one rule from this lecture, you'll understand that you need to be very selective for the things you're running after. That already is consciousness, I tell you. Because normally people just run around chasing whatever they want because it just pops up inside of them. Now I want an ice cream. Now I want to go on a trip. Now I want to do this. Now I want to do that. They just run after things really like an animal. But the minute you press the brakes and say, wait a minute, there's a law I just learned. No matter what I get, I'm not going to get pleasure. No matter what I receive, the pleasure is just going to fade away. It's just going to disappear, evaporate. If I know this already, then you can already start to be selective about what you want. That's already consciousness, if you ask me. So as a Filipino in the Philippines, you have to ask yourself, well, what's the meaning of my life? What do I want from my life? I think that's the biggest question everybody needs to answer. And once you know this rule here, you can begin to be making conscious decisions about it. Even that's consciousness. Because 8 billion people around the world are running after their desires like cats and dogs. And for you to step on the brake and to think, do I really want to go after this or not? It's already like 100 years ahead. What do I need to do now in order to walk the walk? Well, to walk the walk is a good question. How do I do that? Well, we have a really nice group of friends in the Philippines. Not many of them. There's a few of them, but they're very strong and they're very dedicated, and they're really enthusiastic about discovering and attaining the meaning of life. They've already discovered the meaning of life. They want to progress it. They want to go forward with it and attain it even more and more and more. So the best way to start now is to actually connect with them. And that way what you can do is to start integrating yourself to a series of lectures. We have also self-study lectures, which you can go through on your own. And these friends can also help you integrate yourself into that. And that way you can actually take the first step forward and to start to first understand these laws in nature. Because to understand the way we live, to understand our life is very critical in order to start making sense of the things that happen to you. Because our biggest problem in life is what? There's you in the Philippines, right? Here you are living in the Philippines, right? And something happens to you, right? Something happens and you say to yourself, why me? Has anybody asked that question to themselves? Why me? Something happened, say, why me? I'm sure everybody asks that question because everybody does. Why me? Well, why not? Okay, why not? You're a part of 8 billion people on the planet. So things happen to you, negative things, society, ecology, everything, school, work, your boss tells you something bad, or you lose your job, or something negative that happens to you. And immediately you ask, well, why me? Well, why not? Because if bad things didn't happen to you, you'd never ask the question, right? So life has to give us some chili peppers, and they're hot. And so what we have to do is we have to get these little nuances from life. And you start asking yourself too many times, why me? You get to a point where you want to really discover the why. And that's where the wisdom of Kabbalah comes to help you out. That's how it brings solutions. Because you keep asking, why me? Why life? Why this? Why that? Why is it happening to me? Why I'm not happy? What can I do with my life? What do I need to change in my life? All these questions you're asking, it accumulates until you get to a breaking point where you must now, discover the meaning of life. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in your loop and just get depressed. And this is how people get depressed. People get depressed because they don't know where to find happiness, how to find happiness, although they want to be happy, and they just can't understand why they can't be happy, even though they have everything. A lot of people now in the world have most of the things they want, We live in a home, we have food, we're not dying from starvation unless you're in some, critical situation somewhere. The generality of humanity, at the end of the day, is in a state where, we all have mobiles, we're all living a normal life, and then we're asking ourselves, well, why? Why am I having problems? Why am I not happy? You'll get to a point in life where this will become intolerable. And that's the point where a lot of people come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, because they don't just want to jump off the bridge. They want to know why. And that's the kind of person that comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah. He or she wants an answer to what is the meaning of my life? Why am I living? And what do I want to do? What do I want to attain? What do I have to do? What do I need to attain? Why this humanity is created? What does this humanity need to attain? And what is my role in it? Otherwise, we'll be wandering in this life like a leaf in the wind, not really getting anything. This is why you see a lot of people in life aimlessly living. They just live. And then they just go by. They just pass off. People are born, they're just roaming the planet, no real aim for anything, and then they just die off. So a person needs to start thinking seriously about, well, why am I living? I see a hand up over there. I'm happy to take questions, but can I hear you guys? That's the question. No, I can't. Okay, I can't hear you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I can't hear you. Okay, maybe you can write it on Zoom. Sorry about that. Okay. While you write that, I'll answer another question. What do I need to... I think you have a question. Okay, from Manila. Why do I hesitate taking the jump? What is missing or holding me back? Was that your question? Was that the friend's question who raised his hand? No? Okay, so there's another question coming. I'll answer this one in the meantime. So a friend asks, Why do I hesitate taking the jump? What is missing or holding me back? Well, look, one thing that holds people back is that they haven't suffered enough. Okay. And suffering, when I mean suffering, I don't mean physically. It's a qualitative thing. You know, a person who's wondering about life is really, his suffering is qualitative. It's more in the feeling and in the mind. It's from the blurriness of life, that there's no real direction. There's no real goal in life. I mean, you can have many goals in life. You can have a great, you want to have a good career. You want to, I don't know, get rich, be a politician, change the world. You can have a bunch of goals in life. You won't get anywhere with them. And how can you see that you won't get anywhere with them? Because you can look at society and you can see society hasn't gotten anywhere with them. And that's really a wonder, really, in the 21st century. So what really holds a person back is a person needs to really come to a bit more clarification, to really understand that, the way we're living with desire and pleasure cancelling each other out, there's just like, you can't live like this. You need to either have a bit more awareness that this is how it is, and this will really pinch you, and then you'll take the leap. Or you can really look at life and evaluate it today. For example, after the lecture, right? After the lecture, take 15-20 minutes for yourself and ask yourself this question: what did I want to get in life? What did I get? And even if I did get it, what pleasure did I have left in me? Ask yourselves these few questions about life, and you'll see that if you had pleasure in life, you wouldn't be here watching the Wisdom of Kabbalah right now. I'll tell you that much. If you guys were happy in life or content, none of you would be here. You might be rich, you might be poor. The person who comes to the Wisdom of Kabbalah is a person who's like thinking, well, what's this life for anyway? Really. This is, just think about it. The most pleasure you get in life is from sex. The second is from food. Okay? So everything that humanity is really doing is fulfilling these two pleasures: sex and good food. This is the two best pleasures you have in life. And how long do they last? A few seconds. That's it. We're running around to get rich in order to have great food that lasts for a few seconds. And we're wiping out our whole life just for that. It's amazing and it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So you got to come to this understanding that you're running after all these things, and for what? You can't change the world. I'll tell you why. Because you're going to end up dead. And once somebody else comes in your place, he's going to do whatever he wants. So you can't change the world either. Okay? Sold game. Dead. End of story. And that's it. So what do you have left in life? Food, sex, wanting to make a difference. And all of these last a few seconds, and you wanting to make a difference is not even going to happen. That's it. End of story. And humanity is chasing all these things that doesn't make sense. And if you come to the understanding that all this doesn't make sense at all, you'll start studying Kabbalah and you won't look back. That's the difference. Right then, there's another question from there. Oh, did I get the... Okay. Okay, I think I answered all the questions. Was there another question? How did you get to study Kabbalah? Did you have people you knew that studied it? How did I start Kabbalah? I'll tell you how I started Kabbalah. I was also looking for a meaning in my life. That's how I came to Kabbalah as well. I was in Sydney. I was an accountant. I'm an insolvency... Well, I used to be an insolvency accountant. And I had a good education and a good career too. But like I said, when you have good things and you don't get pleasure in life, it's a big question mark. Because throughout childhood, I was raised so that, get what you want and you'll be happy. Okay, sounds like a good deal. So I got what I want, and I discovered I'm not happy. So how could that be? All my life they were teaching me if you get what you want, you'll be happy. And it turns out that's not the case. So there was a big question mark, because I start looking at life and thinking, well, wait a minute. I want to be happy. I have everything to be happy, but it's just not working out. I mean, well, what's this? There's something not right. So you start asking about, well, why am I doing all these things? Why am I running after all these things if I'm not going to get pleasure from it? So I had this big question, because I was at a big dilemma about being happy. Well, what am I really living for? Because I did everything they told me to do in order to be happy. Everything. And I understood that everything they told me was a big fat lie. And that's it. You cannot be happy the way you're living. And to discover that, well, that just, when it fell on me, it was like a ton of bricks. So I felt this urge to discover that there must be a meaning and a purpose to life. I really had this now question burning in me. So I ran after it. And then I found the wisdom of Kabbalah. And by the time I came to Kabbalah, I went through a lot of stuff. I was in religions, I was in meditations, I was in all kinds of philosophies. And then I discovered the wisdom of Kabbalah, and it took one article. Believe me, there was an article I read. It was called Who Am I? That was the first article I read in the wisdom of Kabbalah. When I opened the website, it was on the top left-hand corner. I still remember it. We had a really bad website in the early 2000s. But all the articles were on one page. It was like that, with links on it. It was like a jungle. And the first article was, Who Am I? And I just clicked on that button, and that's it. I read that article and I said, okay, finally, I found what I'm looking for. And ever since then, I've been studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. I think life brings us all. And if it brings you to a question about why you're living, I think it's a golden opportunity, because all of us come with this question. What's the meaning of life? Pretty soon, I'm going to die. I don't even know when I'm going to die. I might just, leave the building and end up dead. We don't know. It's short. It's unpredictable. So you ask yourself, well, what's in my hand to do? And what am I supposed to do, really? So all these questions accumulate inside a person. As with all of you and me, I'm not anyone special. All of us come to the wisdom of Kabbalah through this genuine question. Why am I living? What's the meaning of my life? Really. And I didn't know anybody who was studying Kabbalah, to be honest with you. When I came, the group was pretty small. It wasn't like a huge global group like we've got now, because I came in 2002, and then I joined the group in 2003. By the time I got to know the guys, it was like after I read all the books, and there wasn't anybody in Sydney, so I had to write to find out. And then there was a few guys who popped up, and then we got together. But I didn't know anyone personally who studied the wisdom of Kabbalah. So it was like really, it was a really good moment when I discovered a few people, because then I realized, I'm not abnormal, because I see that other people are also asking about the meaning of life. So that was already like great, because nobody at work was. At work, everybody was like, career, life, what are we going to do on the weekend? And so when I discovered a few people asking, well, what are we going to do with our lives? That was already like, wow, I got some oxygen. Great. So, next question from Manila. How did you get to, okay. Can everybody study Kabbalah? Any age, sex, religion? Do I have to give up every pleasure in this life to be happy? Elhor is asking. You don't have to give up anything, guys. And Kabbalah, Kabbalah is not a religion. You can keep your religion. There's nothing wrong with keeping your religion, because religion is a cultural thing, and you can keep it. Kabbalah is above these things. Kabbalah is about discovering the whole of life. Religion is something else. Religion doesn't really ask you or train you or educate you to be at a higher level of consciousness. So if you feel like you need your religion, or you can stay in your religion, there's no real problem with that. Kabbalah is not a religion, so you don't have to convert to anything. Kabbalah doesn't belong to any religion. It's from Adam, and from Adam, there was no religion during Adam. Adam was, a guy who discovered the laws of nature, who understood that there was a force governing everything in life called God, as we call it in the 21st century. God, Allah, Creator, Elohim, it doesn't matter what you say. And he said, wow, the purpose of life is to live at his level of consciousness. So that's already something completely different from religion. So you don't have to change anything. You don't have to give up anything. If you want to be spiritual in terms of the wisdom of Kabbalah, to rise to a higher level of consciousness, you just need to add this to your life in terms of studying. Just study, once a week, twice a week, whenever you want. Also a question from Manila. How did you find happiness being a Kabbalist? Well, for one thing, you become free of this body that constantly whips you to run around. Okay, our body is like this. Maybe you watched all these. Sometimes you watch it in movies, right? They have these. They have these chariots where they're whipping the horse all the time to go fast. Roman chariots. And our desire to receive pleasure is like this guy on the chariot constantly whipping us, and we're the horses running around. So already happiness is already when you start to look for joy, not from receiving like we do in our lives, but from actually connecting reality together. And happiness is actually discovering reality. And happiness is actually becoming more conscious. That's what real happiness is. Because you discover life with all its richness, rather than living in this small, box where you're looking out the keyhole there. And life is so narrow when you're living in this desire to receive. So to actually get out of that box and to discover amazing reality, which is outside of oneself, is already something really amazing. So that for me was really a great discovery, and that's always as joy, because in our limited perception in life, happiness just cannot be achieved. It's not sustainable. It's like how we ruin the planet. The way our economy works is not sustainable. And our economy is really a reflection of our nature as well, if you think about it. Okay? The way economy works right now is exactly how our nature works. It's just not sustainable. It's just going to lead to recession, depression, and chaos. And this is how our life really is. So in order to discover this happiness, to really get out of that rat race, you can call it, to get out of the rat race and to discover reality from a completely different perspective, and to discover the things you can attain, is already happiness on its own. Okay, and you can study at any age. You can study whether you're a woman or a man, doesn't matter. And you don't have to give up any pleasures in this world. So what is the meaning of life for you that you found as a Kabbalist? Meaning of life for a Kabbalist is to exist in reality, just like the Creator exists in reality. And that is actually the point of happiness that you get when you study the wisdom of Kabbalah. You become an acting force in nature rather than being acted on. Because just like I drew here a minute ago, for us, life is acting on us. And what we do is we react to life. We don't have a choice. Okay, this is life, and it surrounds us with everything. Family, work, stress, chaos, I don't know, whatever is in your life. This is life. And what Kabbalists manage to do is this is life. And what they do is they get out of this vicious circle and they exist outside of it. And then what they can do is then they can influence what's acting on you. So they actually become the force that influences reality and life from a different perspective, from their point of existence, which is having the same influence as the Creator, because this is the Creator's realm. And a Kabbalist exists in that zone. And then he has influence. He has influence on life. And that's already something amazing, because it gets you out of the rat race. It gets you out of all the limitations of this world. So to exist in a state of a Kabbalist is already something really great and amazing. You're completely free. That's where you find freedom. Other than that, we're constantly, between this negative and positive forces, happiness and suffering. That's it. That's our life is. We run away from suffering and we're constantly seeking happiness and fulfillment. These two reins govern us and they whip us all the time like we're a racehorse. It doesn't give you any room to breathe. You can't relax. You don't understand anything. And this narrow life just leads people to the grave. So it's a great opportunity to discover all this, because you then become independent of life and you begin to exist in a sensation which is beyond your body. So your body now becomes like your tool. Rather than it governing you, you begin to rule upon it from a higher level. And the reason why we don't understand our lives, okay, is very, very simple. This rule you should know. In life, we do not understand the human level. According to science, we understand the still, the vegetative, animate, but this is the human level, right? So, this is the still level, this is the vegetative level, this is the animate level, and this is human level. You see, we don't understand our lives. We understand biology, okay? We understand botany. We understand physics and chemistry. We understand all that stuff, but we don't understand ourselves. Ourselves, we don't know. And the only way you can understand yourself is if you reach a higher level, because from your level of existence, there is no way you can understand yourself. So humanity must reach this higher level of consciousness if it wants to understand itself. There is no other way. And to be up here, therefore, gives you great understanding and awareness of why things happen. Why, what, how. All these questions are now answered for you. And the biggest suffering in life is not because we're suffering from physical pain. Our biggest suffering is because we don't have an answer to these questions. We suffer at a very qualitative level because we don't know why things happen. We don't know why we're suffering. So that's a big problem. And the only way you can discover is if you discover the meaning of life, because life has a meaning and it needs to drive humanity towards the attainment of that meaning. And if you do it voluntarily, you release yourself from suffering. And if you don't, humanity just suffers. It just keeps getting blows and blows and blows. All kinds of problems. Psychological, wars, ecology, social unrest, all of these problems, we can never solve them in our level of existence because they're societal problems. So we must elevate ourselves to a next level of consciousness. If we don't get up here, we're only going to have more suffering. And this is how humanity has been developing for thousands of years. So we need to now say to ourselves, you know what? Enough. Enough. How much suffering can we take? So to actually get to that level and to see humanity, to see the reason for things, to see what you can do about it, is already great happiness. And that is the happiness that we should be seeking. We should be seeking the happiness from existing in reality like the Creator and being able to influence it like the Creator, rather than puppets being acted on in this reality within our nature. So as a Kabbalist, to be free from all the laws that we're restricted by in this human nature is already something great. Was it scary to be one of the very few around you that needed that definitive answer? What gave you the courage? Elor is asking. Well, I didn't have anybody asking about the meaning of life when I started to search. And I think the biggest downfall of that was, you're right, being alone was a bit funny, because I'm looking at my friends and everybody around me and nobody's asking about the meaning of life. So when you start to look at yourself and you look at your environment, nobody's asking, and you're asking about the meaning of life, you feel a bit weird. You feel like maybe I'm going through depression or something, because everybody's like, everybody's okay with life. They're all okay with it. And then I did have a few doubts about it, but I just couldn't let it go. I just couldn't bury it. And I couldn't bear it either. And I just had to find out. So I didn't stop. And I got into a lot of things as well, like I said, meditation, religions, all kinds of things. I must have read hundreds of books on spirituality, philosophy, history, all these things. It did feel a little weird at times, but I just had to resolve this problem. So you guys are very lucky, because there are people there around you who've been there, who can help you and support you. And we also have people who look after Asia. I'm one of them. So you'll always have support. You'll always have people to talk to. We can always have these lectures every now and then if you feel like you want to have a lesson where we want to get together. So we can really grow together. And we have an opportunity. When I started, we didn't have any of these opportunities. We were just, like in the deep end. So by the time I found a group of people who wanted to study, we got together. It just, it was like a few months until we got our acts together. For you guys, it's much easier because everything is ready. Technology is much better. In the 2000s, we didn't have such good technology. We still had dial-up internet. It was crazy. So we couldn't connect with anyone or anything. So I'm thinking you're in a really advantageous spot. Everything is ready. If you want, you can jump in, and it's not going to be at the deep end either. How exactly can a group of Kabbalists sitting together prevent Third World War? Because we have a ripple effect. Just like you guys came. How did you all come? How did you all have a question? Because we create a ripple effect. Where did I put that drawing? Here we go. Okay. Because we create a ripple effect. When we study, believe me, the world awakens. Trust me. I'm also originally Turkish, in case you don't know, right? I'm Turkish. When I studied, there was no Turkish people studying Kabbalah. Nobody even heard about Kabbalah in Turkey. And now we have such a strong group. It's one of the best in the world. We have a great group. Even now, this broadcast we're doing is because they helped us to set us up. So the Turkish group did all the technology work. They help us to set it up. We're on YouTube right now live because they worked on it. They're also helping the Africa group to develop. We have a great group in Africa. So when we study, people wake up. And this is how it all works, because we're one body, we're one humanity. So when a group of people want to get conscious, the rest of the body can't help itself. It needs to move forward. It can't help itself. And I think this is why you guys are also in the Philippines now, want to understand why certain things are happening in life and how you can change life. The way to change life is to start understanding our nature and what we can do about this nature, so we can start to work on changing our approach to life, and that will change life. And if we want the world to come to good, we have to strive to be good. And then we have to understand what being good is. A question: can Enoch, seventh from Adam, have attained the highest consciousness, being taken by God without dying physically? Have attained the highest consciousness. In spirituality, there is no physicality, guys. Spirituality means I live at a higher level of consciousness, which is independent from our physical body. For a Kabbalist, the body is like our clothes, right? So let's say my shirt was old. What do? It gets ripped. You throw it away and you put on a new shirt. And that's how our body is. It has nothing to do with our corporeal lives. Attaining a higher level of consciousness is existing in a different way of feeling reality, and it is beyond our physical body. So corporeality has nothing to do with it. Our physicality has nothing to do with it. This is why you can study whether you're a man or a woman, what age you are. It doesn't matter what your religion is, because it's above all these things. What we want to do is actually get to a state of consciousness beyond our body. So dying physically is not even discussed in Kabbalah. Death in Kabbalah means to be disconnected from this force in nature called Creator. Does Kabbalah alone have the answer for the meaning of life? Look, you have to search. I can't say to a person, this is the right thing for you. I went through a lot of stuff, like I said. I was in a lot of teachings. I went through the 4 religions. I looked into Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism. I've been through the I did my rounds. I looked in all kinds of spiritual teachings, from meditations, all kinds of meditations, to philosophies, Asian philosophies, and so forth. And you have to decide what's good for you. I can't be the judge of that, and nobody should be the judge of that. You should decide where your heart is feeling comfortable. I felt, after all the searching that I did, I felt that, this is the teaching for me. After all the stuff I went through, I felt this was it, So you have to search and decide for yourself what works for you, where you feel comfortable, where you feel like, yes, you know what, that answers all my questions. Because at the end of the day, we all come with a question, and you have to choose a wisdom that answers your question. And that answer should be fulfilling. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe we have come to the end of our lecture today. If there are no more questions, that is. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, okay, great. So I guess that's all for today. I'm more than happy to carry on with these lectures. We can touch on other topics if you like, if you feel like you want to continue. The best way to move forward is you're in touch with the guys in the Philippines. So have a chat with them. If you want to study the wisdom of Kabbalah, they know the roots where you can integrate yourself into this wisdom. And we're also more than happy to help you. We have a group of coordinators for Asia, and we'll be more than happy to help you with anything that will advance your learning and studying. In the meantime, though, have a great day. Have a great Sunday evening. All the best. Take care. And it's been a pleasure and a great honor to be with you all. All the best. Bye-bye.